Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. Let's take a look here at SUI, double check a few key factors here. We lost our ascending trend line, starting to work on a descending type of trend here, concurrent with the 20-day SMA. So there's a lot of reasons why taking a long position isn't really advisable for the moment, but we got to recognize too that SUI has done very well in responding to that bounce, or basically bounced really well with Bitcoin pulling back. And there's a decent chance we'll probably see a continuation higher here for SUI. So just keep in mind this coin is really, really good about recovering quickly, and it does appear to be doing that for the moment. So doesn't mean we just go all in, but it does imply that we could be in better shape than most other altcoins in the market right now. So again, just something to kind of think about. Let's take a quick look at the back-end data to kind of see what's going on first, and just recognize some important factors here, such as, if I recall correctly, there was some liquidation, some heavy liquidation on the downside. More so on the smaller time frame. So if we look here on the left-hand side, we can see in the last couple of days, 380 to like 375 has been kind of an area of concentration where people are getting a little heavier on longs, which makes sense because obviously $4 is that support range for us. So having said that, still need to recognize on the bigger picture, obviously $3 to 250 is something to be mindful of, but more importantly, in the local time frame here, last 7 days, we have a chunk of liquidation at 350 to 320. Okay, so we do end up losing $4. We may see a run towards mid to low $3. Just kind of throwing it out there as a possibility. We got a pretty big drop off here, but tons of support too. So I don't think that's the case. I just want you to know that that is definitely something to be mindful of, and aware that those might be good dollar cost average targets for spot bags if you're considering adding to your position on the way down. All that said, we are now shifting to basically liquidation delta for shorts, implying more people are shorting SUI than taking longs right now. And it makes sense. The majority of the market's red right now. Most people are shorting, specifically Bitcoin, and that does cause other coins like altcoins like this to pull back. Granted, it did pull back with Bitcoin, but it's recovered super well. So this, once again, is just a testament of how difficult it is to short this coin. Not really recommended at this point. Having said that, though, 422, 423, we've talked about that previously. That was supposed to be a support range for us. Once we drop below, it worked as a resistance. This is just the open interest areas, folks. This is where people have the most amount of positions available, or they took the most amount of positions. So generally speaking, market makers know that, and they see that you are heavy at 423, and they're going to drop the price down lower, okay, to get kind of shake you out, so to speak. And then, of course, once you weak hands kind of pull out of the market, then they push the price action up. It's stupid and consistent. It happens on every single altcoin. Really quick, before we jump into the daily time frame, the majority of this fair value gap here, this local fair value gap, has been filled. So that's a really good sign, kind of implying that the tentative bottom at 390 is in. Okay. Now let's talk about the daily time frame first and work our way down. And just recognize that we're above all moving averages. The daily time frame is still going to look fairly bullish. We have dropped officially back down under 70 on the RSI. That's commonly referred to as a secure profits in your long position indicator, if you will. At least that's one I use pretty well. 4 hour in the daily time frame, depending on how long you're holding your trade for, you'd want to consider securing some profits now that we're down below that. Okay. Again, hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say that now after we've already dropped, but generally speaking, anytime the RSI drops back under 70, it's usually a good place to consider securing some profits. You don't have to close your whole position, but some is advisable. And that's just kind of what we're seeing there right now. Stochastic is pulling back, but that's the first swing down. Nothing too crazy. Money flow index is still above the RSI, folks. So keep in mind, money flows into this coin pretty fast. Okay. It flows in faster than it flows out, I've noticed. So that's really a good sign, implying that any kind of dip it is recommended to buy for the most part, because of just how quickly it responds. You can literally buy almost any single dip and it just bounces back. As long as you get in and get out quickly, you'll recognize some profit there. Having said that, though, the money flow index is high. That's a good sign. Generally implies sustainability in this upper range. So of all the coins to dump, I think SUI is one of the least likely ones to do so. 4 hour time frame, we can recognize here as well that we're in pretty good shape here in the overall sense, right? We're over the 50-day SMA still, while we're below the 20, and that's kind of a shift of momentum, so to speak. It's not a guarantee that we're shifting bearish. There's just no other way around it that the smaller time frames are bearish, and that we have established lower highs and lower lows. So let's not be completely naive. This recent support level is a potential resistance for us at 410 now. Okay, so we got to recognize that there's a distinct probability the price does one of these and continues lower as a bearish type of rectangle, or depending on how the market responds, it could obviously recover from here. But just know we're in that a little bit of a range. We lost a decently large support at 410. We got to treat that as a resistance for the moment. Again, we draw this out here, we pull this over, we can see some previous highs here at about 380, 385. So we are working ourselves into a support range. Let's see what the RSI tells us. We're under 50 in the RSI. Generally construed as a no-buy zone. At least don't take a long until we cross back up above. That's not a guarantee, of course, not an exact science, but you'll find more benefits respecting 50 in the RSI, specifically on the 4-hour time frame. Until we get back up above it, I would say it's probably not recommended to take a long, because you're just taking a long into a resistance now at that 410 mark. That doesn't make a ton of sense. Stochastic is swinging up for the second time. You can see more significance that way, but money flow index is super low on the 4-hour time frame. And you're probably scratching your head like, wait a minute, the daily time frame says the money flow index is high. What's the big deal? Well, it's 14 candles is how it recognizes it, right? So in the last 2.5 trading days in the 4-hour time frame, that's a lot different than the last 14 days of trading. So in the last 2.5 to 3 days, basically this last weekend, we saw more money flowing away from than going into SUI, and that's typical. So nothing, again, to write home about. Hourly time frame is probably going to say that we are bearish. I'm guessing so. Let's see here, which it does. We're below the cloud. Lagging span is free and clear of the price. Conversion lines below the baseline. So these are all basically 3 out of 3 reasons to not take a long position, even though, again, SUI has good favorability to the upside. We still don't know how much lower Bitcoin could go. So if Bitcoin breaks down again to that 94, 95K range, which is a good solid support range for it, then we probably see a next leg down, maybe even 360 to 380 as a possibility. Okay? So just, again, throwing it out there, don't shoot the messenger here, just letting you know that's a possibility here. But we got to treat 410 like a resistance level. If for some reason or another we could close above 410 today, there's a decent chance we probably see further upside. Keep in mind, we need a little bit more time to mature in order to get that to be where it needs to be. So to keep it simple, in other words, 410 is a nice start, but we'd still be below the cloud, we'd still be below some resistances, and sometimes you got to wait a little bit longer to get that confirmation. Not everybody's willing to wait that long, so I get it if you want to try to FOMO in now. Granted, SUI is probably one of the more prominent coins you could be more successful with doing that, but FOMO is never a good strategy in a declining market. It doesn't really work out too well. Granted, there's going to be plenty of times where it like bounces and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I bought that dip. But right now, it just doesn't feel like one of those, just considering how Bitcoin's performing. So those are just my thoughts there. I hope that it works out well for you either way. At this point here, our Elliott wave is still in, still potential. We're still validated here, unless we come as low as about like 370 or lower. Then we're still in good shape here to see this potentially pivot off 0.5, 0.6 and 8 levels. It does seem like at this point here that 385 to $4 is that rough estimate of support, and the likelihood of bouncing from there as we're seeing here so far. But again, treat 410 as a resistance for the moment until we close above it, right? That's kind of where we're at. All right, I'll post a playout chart here in our Twitter, Telegram, Discord shortly. Feel free to check out Bitunix too, folks, if you're new to the channel. SUI, a lot of good coins are traded over here. There's no KYC or VPN required in the US and Canada. That's why we use them as an exchange, and they offer, our community is provided with significant benefits every month just because we have so many people using them. So $12,000 deposit bonus. Check them out, folks. They're really awesome. I hope you have a good rest of the day. Thanks again so much for your time. We'll see you soon. Take care.